When you're generous with someone, when you give them your money or your time, it can feel like you're losing. If you hold on to your money, your time, your resources, that should make you better off. The more you keep, the more you have. Simple math, right? But here's something that makes no sense. When scientists study greedy people, those who accumulate resources and always want more, they find worse health outcomes. They have more stress and brain patterns that look a lot like addiction. Meanwhile, people who give things away, who actually lose money and time and resources helping others, generous people, show the opposite. They have calmer bodies, better health markers, and completely different brain activity. It's backwards. You would think keeping everything would signal safety to your body, and losing things would signal danger. But the evidence keeps pointing the other way. People who give things away are healthier and happier than those who keep everything. So let me show you what researchers have discovered about generosity and greed, and why losing a little might be the best thing you can do for your health. So let's start with a huge question, one we have all wondered. Are we born selfish? You might be surprised by the answer. If generosity or selfishness is a core part of who we are, we should be able to spot it early, before society has had time to shape us. This is exactly what scientists have hypothesized and tested. And it all started in a lab at the University of British Columbia, where researchers placed a toddler, a bowl of goldfish crackers, and a stuffed puppet named Monkey. The setup was simple. Researchers gave toddlers, kids too young to even form complete sentences, a small bowl of crackers. Then they introduced the puppet and asked the child to share. And here's what happened. The toddler reached out her tiny hand, gave the puppet a cracker, and the puppet responded with an enthusiastic yum. Every single time the child gave away a cracker, her face lit up with pure joy. Now you might think, okay, kids like making puppets happy. So what? But here's where it gets interesting. The researchers changed the conditions. Sometimes the toddler gave away one of her own crackers. Other times the researcher found an extra cracker, and the child gave that one away instead. The question was, does it feel different to give away something that's yours versus giving away something that costs you nothing? The answer? Absolutely. When toddlers sacrifice their own treat, what's called costly giving, their happiness skyrocketed compared to when they just handed over the found cracker. Scientists measured this through facial analysis and behavioral observation, and the difference was clear. As you can see here, the child was happy when sharing a toy, playing with the toy, meeting the puppet, receiving treats, but they were by far the happiest when giving their own treat to the puppet. The conclusion is that making a sacrifice by giving away something that matters to you feels better than giving away something that doesn't. You might think, okay, sure, Canadian toddlers are just super polite, and that's a fair point, but they replicated the exact experiment all over the world, from a tiny village in the South Pacific to major cities in Europe and Asia. Toddlers everywhere seem wired to feel joy from sharing something of their own, but it doesn't stop with kids. A massive study looked at 200,000 people across 136 countries, from wealthy nations like Canada to less affluent countries like Uganda. And the results were incredibly consistent. Giving money to someone in need consistently made people happier, regardless of where they lived, how much money they had, or what their culture was like. And this doesn't just apply to money. The same pattern shows up when people give their time, their attention, or their effort. There's something universal about this. Across cultures, across income levels, and across age groups, generosity reliably boosts well-being. But this is where it gets even more interesting. Generosity doesn't just make you feel good emotionally, it actually changes what's happening inside your body. In one study, researchers asked older adults with high blood pressure to spend money on others for 3 weeks. Not on themselves, but on other people. and the results were stunning. Their blood pressure dropped by magnitudes comparable to those seen starting a new medication, exercising regularly, or making major dietary changes. Just by spending money on others, these participants experienced the same cardiovascular benefits as taking prescription drugs. Being generous had the same effect as medicine. So why does this happen? When you do something generous, your body releases a cascade of hormones, including oxytocin, often called the bonding hormone. Oxytocin reduces stress and pressure on your arteries and veins, which is exactly what lowers blood pressure. Another study tested this more directly. Researchers had people perform a simple, generous act, like writing a supportive note to a friend, before facing the stressful task of preparing and delivering a speech under time pressure. Compared to the control group, the generous group showed significantly lower stress markers. Their systolic blood pressure didn't spike as much during the speech. They also had lower levels of salivary alpha amylase, an enzyme linked to the fight or flight response. So their entire stress response was dampened. Generosity essentially acted like a buffer against stress. Being generous also provides a somewhat unexpected benefit: pain relief. In one experiment, researchers compared blood donors to people having blood drawn for personal medical tests. So both groups got the exact same needle prick. But the blood donors, the people giving their blood to help someone else, reported significantly less pain than those getting blood drawn for themselves. Another study used a cold pressor test. If you've never heard of this, basically practitioners put their hands in freezing cold water and see how long they can tolerate it before the pain becomes unbearable. Okay, but before the study, researchers asked some participants to volunteer without pay to revise a handbook for migrant workers' children. Others were assigned the same task as a mandatory requirement, and a third group declined to do it at all. Then everyone performed the cold pressor test. The volunteers, the people who chose to help without being forced, reported significantly less pain and kept their hands in the freezing water nearly twice as long as a control group. Out of everyone in the study, only a little over 11% managed to tolerate the icy water for the maximum of 3 minutes. Do you want to guess who were the resilient few? Every single one of those people was in the generous volunteering group. So the same researchers then tested this with cancer patients suffering from chronic pain. They had patients practice helping others for 3 weeks, preparing meals for other patients, cleaning public areas of the hospital, and performing small acts of service. The results? Clinically significant reductions in their chronic pain levels. Acts of generosity literally help reduce their suffering. The authors concluded that generosity could potentially supplement current pain therapies for people dealing with chronic pain. So, what's actually going on in your brain when you're generous? Brain imaging studies show that when people engage in generous behavior, regions in the brain like the ventral striatum and ventral tegmental area light up. These are the same areas that activate when you eat something delicious or achieve a goal you've been working toward. In other words, your brain treats generosity like a reward. It feels intrinsically good on a neurological level. But here's something super interesting. Your brain processes generosity differently depending on why you're being generous. If you help someone because you think it's fair or because you feel obligated, that activates brain regions responsible for rule-based thinking. Basically, you're following a social contract. But if you help someone out of pure compassion or empathy, without expecting anything back, that activates different networks, ones linked to emotional connection and understanding. And when researchers studied extreme altruists, people who donate kidneys to complete strangers with no expectation of anything in return, they found remarkable findings. These altruistic donors have larger amygdalae, the brain region involved in processing emotions compared to average people. And they show heightened activity in empathy-related brain structures. They're not suppressing selfish desires. They're not forcing themselves to be good. They genuinely value the well-being of others, and their brains reflect that. On the flip side, people who are greedy, who constantly want more money, more status, more stuff, tend to have dysregulated reward systems similar to people with an addiction. They get a brief hit of satisfaction when they acquire something new, but it fades quickly, leaving them wanting more. That's why greedy people, despite often having more, tend to report lower well-being and higher stress levels. Now, before you start giving away everything you own, there's some nuance here. Not all generosity has the same effect. Research shows that, for example, giving someone an experience, like taking them out for dinner or treating them to a concert, tends to strengthen relationships more than material gifts. Experiences create shared memories and emotional connections in ways that objects often don't. That said, research and anecdotal experience shows that material gifts can be meaningful if they're deeply personalized or tied to shared experiences. There's also a law of diminishing returns. More isn't always better. Buying someone an expensive gift doesn't necessarily make either of you happier than a small, thoughtful gesture. Sometimes a cup of coffee has the same emotional impact as something far more lavish. And here's a big one. The motivation matters. Genuine voluntary giving enhances happiness, but if you feel pressured or obliged, it actually diminishes or even eliminates the benefits. One study found that people who gave out of a sense of duty or social pressure reported little to no emotional benefit, but people who gave freely, out of care for someone, experienced significant boosts in well-being. This is especially relevant during the holidays. You think generosity would peak in December, right? But research shows it actually tends to decrease. People report high levels of holiday stress, financial strain, pressure to keep up with others, obligations, and they end up giving less or giving in ways that don't feel good. So the lesson here is, generosity works best when it's authentic, voluntary, and aligned with your values. From toddlers to adults, across cultures and circumstances, the science is pretty consistent. Generosity improves your health and happiness. It lowers blood pressure, it reduces stress, it alleviates pain, it strengthens relationships, and it activates the pathways in your brain in ways that make you feel good. And the beautiful thing, it doesn't have to be grand or expensive. And this time of year, with Thanksgiving and Christmas, there's a lot of pressure to give expensive gifts, perfect gestures, and keep up with everyone's expectations. But remember that generosity should be voluntary and authentic and from your heart. You can try simple things. Help a neighbor with their groceries, donate a small amount to something you care about, volunteer an hour of your time, or even listen to a friend who's going through something difficult. These small acts add up, not just for the people you're helping, but for you. Because it turns out that when you give a little, you gain a lot. Before you go, I'm curious, when's the last time you did something generous and how did it make you feel? Drop your thoughts in the comments, and if you found this video interesting, share it with someone who might need a reminder that giving is good for the soul and the body. And don't forget to subscribe for more videos like this one.